There's this almost laughable notion in our society that if you own more expensive things, that you have more valuable things, and that if you own more expensive things, then you are more valuable. We all know that that's not necessarily the case, but when we meet people and we see their nice things, we can't help but wonder if maybe they have more or are more than we are. It really just comes down to a choice of values. And a lot of these people are what is now termed as virtue signaling, to say, I'm better than you are because I have nice things. The great irony is many of these things aren't really all that nice. The movie IQ, which is like 20 years old now or something ridiculous, 30 years old now maybe, he makes a comment in the movie that, well, the British would rather glue wood to the dashboard than bother getting the electrical system right. And so much of what is considered to be more valuable and elite materials is really no more than window dressing, no more than gluing wood to a dashboard, which brings me to today's visual aid. I found this Thursday morning while I was doing my morning walk, and I picked it up just because I thought I might want to have a BMW thing somewhere. And aside from the fact that I personally detest BMW as a company, having lived overseas, I found this particular piece very illuminating as to what BMW actually means you're doing. If you look at what this is made of, which we'll go into just a second, BMW looks like nothing more than a way to separate fools from their money. If you flip this around on its side, you can see that it is a sandwich of two different pieces. There's the front part, which I can make wiggle a little bit. You can hear it. And then this back part. And this back part is just plastic. And it inserts itself into the hood, right in the center of a BMW. And then it has the BMW symbol on the outside. This appears to be a modular piece because the metal overlay here is simply wrapped around the back. Like there are probably multiple manufacturers that have this exact same design, where the only difference is what wood they glued on the dashboard. So I could theoretically cut any piece of metal that fit this particular curvature and shape and put it on here, and then put it onto my BMW and drive around, with a BMW with a Saturn symbol on it, assuming that the Saturn made them in this particular shape, which they didn't. So it doesn't mean that this is anything unique or special. And then the back is plastic. So my first impression when I noticed this was, so you pay more for your plastic parts than I do. Now we know there's some German engineering that goes into it. That's probably mostly what you're paying for, but the parts are garbage. And then if you look at the part, I don't know if you can see it in the video, get it as close as I can, it says Italy. So your German engineered car, your elite German automobile, has parts that are made in Italy. Now Italy does make some good cars. Ferrari is a nice Italian vehicle, but Italy has a lot of crappy cars. And so is this a quality part? It illustrates that a lot of what we see in life, as Shakespeare taught us, is a play. This is not a quality part. This is a modular, interchangeable part that is probably only made for European cars to make this particular type of decal interchangeable, but it is not actually very valuable. This is a simple plastic piece with a thin metal shield put around it, where it's aside from saying, look, I'm better than you are because I drive a BMW, it's really not worth very much. And it makes me wonder, what did you have to pay to get this on your car instead of a Toyota thing or a Chevrolet? And those are bigger because they actually have to make the words, and it's not a pressed metal piece, it's a series of cut letters. So it actually is probably more expensive to make than this particular decal. And the reason why this matters is not a dig on BMW owners or anything. It's a symptom, visual symptom of the bigger disease that we have in our society, that because some people have more access to education or vocational opportunities, that because they have what would be considered to be nicer things, that they start dividing themselves into ranks. And we have a de facto caste system in the West where people act as if they were your betters because they have stuff that is considered to be a sign of a better person, even if when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, the stuff is actually made out of garbage. And you know, Britain, they'd rather glue wood on the dashboard than worry about getting the electrical system correct. I have no love for foreign cars. They are, by and large, in my opinion, driven by people as optical status symbols rather than because they are superior, or they're driven because they are romanticized for their nostalgia's sake from growing up, or the nation of origin, or because dad had one, or whatever. And there's a lot of that. I drive a Saturn, and it's an emotionally romanticized thing. I don't think Saturns are terribly great cars. For the most part, for what I want a car, though, it's valuable to me. And I didn't have to pay a lot for it. So that's valuable to me. Because I have no idea what kind of BMW this came from, but I know that BMWs are not cheap cars. And so whatever you paid for this, you paid too much. All in an effort to say, look, I have a BMW. I'm better than you are. Are you? Or are you just someone who is easily separated from their money? Now, this is because of the way I was raised. My dad always taught me that cars are tools, not accoutrements. So we don't have fancy. I mean, my dad's bought newish, nice cars now that he's close to retirement, so that he can have a car that will last him for a long period of time without needing repairs. So he can have a car that's comfortable and gives him the features that he wants without having to worry about working on it, because the last thing he wants to do is be 75 and crawling underneath his car working on it. And I totally get that. Totally get that. Contrast that with a neighbor of mine, like 5 or 6 doors away, who drives an $85,000 pickup truck. He doesn't actually have a job because he owns a bunch of houses and collects money from the rent. And so he has this $85,000 truck to run errands. So he doesn't live any better than I do, despite their increased income, or because I think his wife works, and I don't know how many adult children they have who live there. But because you spent $85,000 on a truck to run errands, so you can look better, like you can, and they act like they're better than I am. It is so funny what people think of what you have, what you wear, what you drive, where you live, tells you more about them than the things you own tells them about you. Because, for example, I drive a Saturn because I choose to, not because I can't afford something nicer, and because I don't consider this to be nicer, and I don't need an $85,000 truck. I could get a $15,000 one or a $5,000 one that would meet my needs totally fine. It might have all the features that I wanted, and that's the risk you run buying a used car versus a new car. But that's the only reason I can think about. There are 2 reasons I can think to buy a new car: to get the specific features that I want, or because I was buying a car and I didn't want to have to work on it. That's it. Everything else is showmanship. And Shakespeare was right. Most of what you see is a play. And most of what you see is not telling you the real story about someone, but it does tell them real things about you. Now, you've learned some real things about me, that if you drive one of these, I am going to presume that you are foolish with your money and that you make unwise financial decisions, especially if it's not a practical thing. There's a guy I know who drives, I think it's a BMW, like a 3-wheeled one that has no roof, and it's 110 degrees outside. That car has got to be uncomfortable as hell. Actually, it's a woman. It's a really butch-looking woman. That's right, I saw her the other day and I was shocked. I'm like, oh, it's a woman. I call it the Batmobile. Also a very unpractical car, unless, of course, you're Batman. So, but my idea of value is different from yours. So what you do learn from my reaction to a car is that my values are different. And you may actually learn what they are, what I find valuable. The frustrating thing I find about value is some people, even after they find out what you value, don't care. And they don't offer you things of value. But that's another story. If you are a BMW lover, that's wonderful. I learned while I was living in Europe that no self-respecting German would be caught dead driving a Bayerischer Mistwagen, because BMW also makes their garbage trucks. BMW is the Ford of Germany. And if you like Fords, maybe you like BMWs too, but it is not a luxury brand there like it is here. So some of it's perspective and some of it is context. And the context it gives me is I don't really share the context with you about your values that you share with me. So if you're a BMW person and you aspire to have one, we probably don't have a whole lot in common. And that's okay. Just because we're different doesn't mean that we're deficient. It just means that we're different. And sometimes different is okay. Sometimes. I'm not saying different is always okay, but sometimes it's okay. This is not a moral difference or a legal difference. This is a difference of how you choose to spend your time, talents, and money. But there is a risk in spending your labor for that which cannot last, and your substance for that which cannot satisfy. And I have to wonder, would I be satisfied if I paid that much for a car and found out it was this crappily made? Maybe not. I also wonder, how did this come out? Because it didn't break out. How did this come out of there? I'll never know, and it doesn't really matter. But it does make me ask a lot of questions. And it makes me feel a lot better about the fact that I haven't spent my hard-earned money to buy a BMW or anything like it. But if you like them, that's great. You do you. It's okay. Be you. We live in America. We're still free to make at least some decisions. Enjoy it while you can. Godspeed. Have a great day. And oh, be wise. What can I say more?